Well there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. I watched episode 11 and my hot take was weakest episode so far in the entire series. I knew this was a terrible take. I mean, I watched this episode on my phone. I hadn't slept the night before, really. I was on my way to a doctor's office. Who knew Dolphin had teeth? It carried knives around. I mean, what the hell? But I basically put myself in a terrible position to watch Andor. But here's the thing. I think a lot of people also saw episode 11 as one of the weaker episodes.
Stop saying that.
Just like how a lot of people probably didn't like episode 2, 5, and 8 as much.
They're lost! All of them, lost!
All of these episodes are so-called filler episodes. That's what some people call them. They're not really filler episodes. I think they're using the word wrong. Filler is like when I make a video about shipping Cyril Karn and Deidre Miro together, and then like I make an entire video with different Star Wars characters, and I use AI to generate their babies. That's it. That's an actual real thing I did. That is a filler episode, guys. It's also a post. It's like similar. Anyway, if you take a look at episode 11, episode 2, and 5, and 8, and you actually break them down, I mean, the quality of these episodes actually does not dip at all. Remember how each episode of The Mandalorian had a neat beginning, middle, and end? And even the 2-episode arcs were carefully cut off and designed to bring viewers back the next time? Andor is anything but that. Every 3 episodes is an arc. You had the Ferrix arc, the Aldani arc, and the Narkina 5 arc. And if you were to actually sit down and watch them together as intended without any breaks, not only would you not notice 2, 5, and 8 being slow or being filler episodes, you begin to see how they're basically essential to the story and the climaxes at the end of each arc. The real problem with episode 5, 8, 11 is that we have to wait a freaking week for the next episode. But a few months from now, a few years from now, we'll forget about this disjointed weekly viewing we've had to experience, and I think a lot of these middle so-called filler episodes will be redeemed. Just like how some of the best episodes in the Clone Wars series were 3-episode arcs as well. Although even then I would argue that Filoni did structure them differently to work better with the format. That's also what makes Tony Gilroy great. I mean, he just does not give a fuck. Him and Bill Burr, I love these two guys. They actively tell us that they don't really care that much about Star Wars, and yet it doesn't really matter. I mean, Miggs Mayfield is a great character. The range of emotions on that twisted, bald ginger's face right before he shot that ISB officer who massacred his entire unit. What a performance. And what do I think about Tony Gilroy? We'll just watch like the 30 or 40 or 50 videos I've made about Andor where I'm just absolutely fangirling over him. It's embarrassing. Now, originally, Andor was supposed to be 5 years, 5 different seasons, 5 different years, and honestly, I still selfishly wanted to be that. But Tony Gilroy and Diego Luna were like, we cannot handle this. And my hot take originally was, oh, these guys are like, you know, they're so selfish, they're jaded. I would give anything to be a part of Star Wars. But then when I started watching the show, I kind of understood. I mean, this is one of the most lovingly and carefully crafted pieces of cinema I've ever seen in the Star Wars franchise. The sheer amount of attention and care placed into the story is just inspiring.
I realized that life was worth living. I realized that if nothing else, there was justice and beauty in the galaxy, and if it just kept going.
It must have been exhausting to film this series. I mean, we're talking about 500-600 minutes within one season of a show. That's like Lord of the Rings type of numbers. I'm talking about the original trilogy movie. So anyway, I got back, sat down on the couch, and I watched episode 11 once again, and I came to a realization that, you know, I'm an idiot before I have my coffee and wake up in the morning. I also realized that episode 11 is the second to last chapter, and it is actually crucial for setting up the finale. In Andor, every little victory, like the Narkina 5 breakout, feels amazing, not because of the moment Kino Loy goes onto the speaker system. As awesome as that was, it's awesome because it was a cathartic release of all the horror, stress, tension, sadness we felt building up before that episode. Episode 8 introduced us to the prison and the prisoners. Episode 9 showed us just how indoctrinated and helpless these people were and how much they cared about each other, despite it all. To see Ham and Melshi run around with blasters waving, taking out the guards, and breaking out entire floors of prisoners can only feel rewarding as it did because of those so-called filler episodes that preceded it. And now in episode 11, we don't have the beginning of a new arc. We don't have a new portion of the map being opened, so it's not as exciting. Instead, what we're doing is we're revisiting all of the different story arcs that have been, you know, slowly building up to this point. And as you can see, everything is so perfectly crafted that like the gradual degrading of the galaxy is very visible, especially if you watch all the episodes again in order. Everything is falling apart. But the dread here is so pervasive and visible. The actions of Luthen Rael and the Empire in response is going to leave scars across the entire galaxy, and we can all see it, feel it, and smell it coming. The finale will take place in two places. You have Ferrix and you have Steergard. First, let's talk about Ferrix. The main event there is going to be Marv's funeral. The woman who saved Andor from what honestly looked like a best case scenario for like a Lord of the Flies situation, although that's distracting. What's more tragic is that her droid doesn't seem to understand death. We see the whole community come together to support it though. The daughters of Ferrix, the big, tough, but also surprisingly soft-hearted Brazo, they all come to pack Marva's things and be with the droid.
I'll take the afternoon off. We'll come back tomorrow. She's not here, B. She's in the stone now. She's on her way.
We'll wait to make sure.
And I thought I loved Brasso after he tied that Corpo tac pod to a piece of salvage, but this scene, man, it broke me down a little bit.
I can't leave you here alone. She wouldn't want that.
You could stay.
One night.
What a good man. These scenes also fill me with a lot of dread, though, because everything about this town is quite precious to me now. These are humble people, hardworking. They're not rich. They don't have fancy clothes or luxurious speeders. Everything they have is second-handed. Yet they have so much care for what little they own, and more importantly, they have so much care for one another. They've unlocked the key to happiness. It's not about what you have, it's about what you do with what you have, and that's worth protecting, for sure. And so that means that the Empire, Dedra Meero, who waits in hiding like a snake, will use the togetherness of the Ferrix people to make things incredibly difficult for Andor. Things were already bad enough after the Corpo ambush, but now things are gonna get a lot worse, like collective punishment worse. And then there's poor Bix. You guys might be asking, why does her face look so different? I mean, is it a makeup thing, or more aptly, the lack of visible eye makeup? It makes her look more tired and ragged and old. Leave it up to the Empire to torture people with recordings of the death of other people they killed. It's so evil on so many levels, it's like an evil sandwich. I'm hungry. Yet, there's not a scratch on the subject from all of this torture. I would argue that the ISB officers working her are even gentle in how they treat her, which is really fucking confusing. And now we're also seeing the changes in Dedra Meero. At first, we believed Dedra to be simply competent, someone who's good at her job, and we rooted for her. I mean, efficiency doesn't need to use cruel and terrible methods, but unfortunately, sometimes terrible and cruel methods are very efficient, like using Marv's body as bait for Cassian. I mean, Tony Gilroy does a great job at this. He really impartially makes these characters. By not making Dedra Meero a goonishly evil person right off the bat, we respect her. We see her as a very capable ISB officer, and some of us might really like her. And then comes the alien baby scream torture. Well played, Tony Gilroy, you son of a bitch. Everything is falling apart. Mon Mothma is losing connection with her daughter, who's rejected everything that she's fought for. And now she's becoming traditional, religious? Is this some kind of like coming to age ritual like a bat mitzvah for a young Chandrilan who's about to get shoved into an arranged or forced marriage? I'm pretty sure Mon Mothma was in a forced marriage at the same young tender age. She was 15 when her parent tied the knot, and she was robbed of one of life's best and most amazing things, and that is finding love and falling into love.
Love, the most beautiful, shining, warmy thing in the world? You can't accept it?
Mon Mothma was most likely turned into a pawn in some kind of power game by her and parents' parents. It's kind of sad because this is everything that Mon Mothma stands against, really. And maybe the reason she's against this is because she rejects her marriage, her childhood. And it's really sad to watch her have to make that really tough choice of potentially doing the same thing to her own daughter. The fact that her daughter might even be okay with this and want to embrace Chandrilan culture doesn't really make it any better. It's painful to see such a strong figure get broken down by a scummy loan shark. The fact that Mon Mothma's family is missing from most of the Star Wars lore that occurs years later is an ominous sign. Then we have Saw Gerrera and Luthen Rael, and both of these strong warriors are at a loss. They don't really know what to do. I mean, Saw is more out of control and antsy than usual, which generally means someone is going to die soon, or get booglit. Luthen Rael's patience is wearing even more thin. He basically reveals to Saw his ISB connection by telling Saw not to go on the Steer Guard mission that he now wants to attend for some reason, which only makes things even more chaotic. Saw is beginning to suspect that Luthen has a man inside of his camp as well.
Someone at ISB? Maybe there's someone here with me.
You're wasting time.
Why wouldn't you?
You're avoiding the choice.
Who is it?
And Luthen humorously points to Tubes and says it's him.
It's Tubes.
¿Qué es ese chico? Putuca.
I mean, this is really messed up. Like, Tubes probably had to watch his back for like the next year. You get a sense that Luthen just does not give anymore. I mean, he just does not care about operations, procedure. He's ready to start a war and fight, and potentially go down as a result.
What is that?
The same vibe is reflected in Vel's visit to the antique shop. She just shows up out of the blue without any warning and demands an audience with Luthen.
Everything you're doing right now is wrong.
Tomorrow is too late.
I mean, every direction we look, momentum is pushing. It's pushing people towards one final climactic battle. Even Cyril Karn hooks up with everyone's favorite tactical blueberry, Linus Mosk. So there you have it, guys. That is my review of the episode. I don't do a lot of reviews, but I thought this one needed one because I think a lot of you guys might be thinking the same thing as me. I don't know. Let me know in the comments section down below. Also, guys, I want to hear your predictions on what you think is going to happen in the finale. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button down below so you don't miss on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us. My name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy,